The Terran patrol ship Vanguard drifted silently at the edge of the Slipstream, its reinforced hull reflecting the distant light of the sector's twin stars. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the bridge, his fingers tapping lightly against the armrest of his command chair. The Vanguard's mission was routine: patrol the border, monitor incoming traffic, and ensure no hostile forces slipped into Terran-controlled space. But nothing about the vessel on their scanners suggested routine. "Confirm those readings," Rourke said, his voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Mira Vasquez, head of xenodiplomacy and linguistic decryption, adjusted her display, frowning as data scrolled across her screen. "It's Rogan, sir. Single vessel. And..." She hesitated. "It's barely holding together." Rourke exchanged a look with his tactical officer, Commander Dren Halverson. The Rogans were a warlike species, proud and ruthless. They never came alone, never limped into enemy space without a fight. "It's broadcasting a distress signal," Vasquez continued, her voice tight. "Encrypted. But the headers are standard Rogan military." Halverson scoffed. "A trap. A Rogan warship never waves a white flag. Unless," Vasquez countered, "something worse is chasing them." Rourke exhaled, studying the main view screen. The Rogan ship, identified as Skalkesh, was a wreck, hull breaches, venting plasma, and severe structural damage. It listed through space like a wounded animal, just barely holding on to life. "Open a channel," he ordered. Vasquez nodded, fingers flying across her console. Static burst through the bridge's speakers, followed by a garbled voice speaking Rogan. She adjusted frequencies until the words became clear. "Shelter, we request asylum. Skalkesh is compromised. Need immediate medical and technical assistance. They are coming." The last phrase sent a chill through the room. Rourke leaned forward. "This is Captain Elias Rourke of the Terran vessel Vanguard. Identify yourself." A pause. Then, ragged breathing. "Captain Kesare of the Rogan Empire, or what remains of it." That drew a sharp glance from Halverson. Vasquez turned slightly pale. "Explain," Rourke said, keeping his voice level. Another pause. Then Kesare spoke, voice thick with something that might have been fear. "The war you fought against us, it's over. We lost. But not to you." A static-laced cough. "You have to let us aboard. If you don't, you won't have time to regret it." The channel cut. For a long moment, silence filled the bridge. Halverson was the first to speak. "This is insanity. Rogans don't surrender." "They don't. They do if something's broken them," Vasquez interrupted, her face set in grim determination. "And we need to know what." Rourke stood, his decision already made. "Prepare a boarding team." The Skalkesh's docking bay was a graveyard. Dim emergency lighting flickered, casting jagged shadows across the twisted wreckage. The air was thick with the acrid stench of burning circuitry and something more organic, charred flesh. Bodies, Rogan bodies, lay twisted in unnatural positions, their armor scorched, weapons frozen in useless grips. Rourke moved forward cautiously, pulse rifle at the ready. Behind him, Vasquez and a small team of armed specialists followed, their footfalls echoing through the vast chamber. "This wasn't just a battle," Vasquez murmured, eyes scanning the carnage. "This was slaughter." A rasping sound ahead made them all freeze. Rourke raised a fist, signaling for silence. The sound came again. Labored breathing, just beyond a collapsed bulkhead. Carefully, they stepped over the wreckage. Captain Kesare was slumped against the remains of a shattered console. His once proud red armor cracked and smeared with dark Rogan blood. One arm was missing below the elbow, the wound hastily cauterized. His yellow eyes flickered open as they approached. "You came," he rasped. "We need answers," Rourke said. Kesare let out something that might have been a laugh, though it quickly turned into a wet cough. "Answers. You won't want them." Vasquez knelt beside him, scanning his vitals. "You need medical." No, Kesare's good hand clamped onto her wrist, stopping her. His grip was weak, trembling. "It's too late. Listen." Rourke crouched down. "Who did this?" The Rogan captain's breathing was shallow. They came from the Slipstream. We thought we understood it. We thought we controlled it. But we were wrong. He exhaled sharply. We built ships to cross it faster, to move entire war fleets between stars in seconds. And we did. His eyes locked onto Rourke's, burning with something terrible. But we weren't alone in there. A cold weight settled in Rourke's gut. They weren't ships, Kesare continued. Not machines. They moved like shadows, pulled us apart from the inside. He shuddered. We tried to fight, but the harder we fought, the stronger they became. We ran. We ran, and they followed. Vasquez whispered, "They're coming here." Kesare's grip on her wrist tightened for a moment, then went slack. His head lolled back, eyes staring into nothing. He was dead. A sudden pulse of light rippled through the ship, making every display flicker and die. The Vanguard's comm unit crackled in Rourke's ear. "Sir," came the voice of his communications officer, barely audible through static. "You need to get back. Now." Rourke didn't hesitate. "Fall back to the ship. Double time." As they moved, Vasquez glanced back at Kesare's lifeless form. "He ran," she murmured, "and he still didn't escape." The moment they stepped onto the Vanguard's bridge, alarms were blaring. "Report," Rourke barked. "Massive energy surge from the Slipstream," the sensor officer called out. "Something's coming through." The main view screen flared as a swirling vortex of distorted space split open beyond the wreckage of the Skalkesh. From its depths, something emerged. Rourke had seen hundreds of starships in his career. This was not a starship. It was vast, amorphous, its edges shifting like liquid shadows against the void. Pulsing veins of unnatural light coursed along its form, flickering in eerie rhythm. It did not move like a machine, it flowed, as if space itself bent to accommodate its presence. No signals, no transmissions, no hails, but deep within his mind, Rourke swore he could hear something. A whisper, wordless yet suffocating. Halverson's voice was taut. "Orders, Captain?" Rourke stared at the entity as it loomed closer. Kesare had been right. They had run, and the war had followed. End of section 1. The entity loomed beyond the wreckage of the Skalkesh, pulsing with an eerie, sickly glow. It had no defined edges, no metallic structure or recognizable form, just a shifting mass of darkness, moving with unnatural fluidity. It was neither ship nor creature, but something other, something that did not belong in the space humanity understood. Captain Elias Rourke gripped the edge of his console, forcing his breath to steady. The bridge of the Vanguard was bathed in dim emergency lighting as the entity's presence disrupted power systems, causing screens to flicker with static. "Energy readings are off the charts," Lieutenant Mira Vasquez reported, her voice tense. "It's interfering with our instruments. I can't get a clear analysis." Commander Dren Halverson stood stiff beside her. "That thing isn't moving like a ship. It's growing." On the main view screen, the void itself seemed to bend around the entity. Tendrils of darkness lashed outward, curling toward the remains of the Rogan vessel. The moment they touched metal, the wreckage began to decay, unraveling into nothingness, as though it had never existed. A shiver ran down Rourke's spine. "Weapons online. Target that thing." Halverson's fingers flew across the tactical interface. Plasma batteries primed, firing. The Vanguard's main cannons ignited, spewing searing energy across the void. The bolts collided with the entity, only to vanish into its shifting mass, swallowed without impact. Rourke's pulse quickened. "Did we do any damage?" "No effect." Halverson's voice was grim. "It absorbed the blasts like they weren't even there." Vasquez's face paled. "It's learning." The whisper in Rourke's mind deepened, a sensation like pressure building behind his skull, just on the edge of comprehension. His grip tightened. He couldn't let that voice in. On screen, the entity pulsed. Then it moved. With impossible speed, it surged forward, closing the distance between itself and the Vanguard in mere seconds. The ship's artificial gravity lurched, sending the bridge crew stumbling. "Sir, it's trying to..." Vasquez's words cut off as the ship's power dropped to emergency reserves. The bridge went dark. For a moment, there was only silence. A deep, suffocating quiet. Then the whisper became a roar. A psychic pressure slammed into the crew's minds. A cascade of alien thoughts, impossible geometries, the sensation of being unmade. Rourke gritted his teeth, forcing himself to remain standing. Around him, some of his officers fell to their knees, clutching their heads. He forced out a single command. "Get us the hell out of here." Helm control was unresponsive. Then, a burst of light. The Vanguard's engines reignited as auxiliary power rerouted. The oppressive pressure vanished. The ship lurched backward, propelled away from the entity as it momentarily reeled, as though caught off guard. "The Slipstream," Vasquez gasped. "It's reacting to it. Our engines must have created a feedback surge in the energy field." Rourke seized the moment. "Helm, full retreat to Outpost Helios." The Vanguard spun away from the entity, its engines burning at maximum. Behind them, the mass stretched unnaturally, tendrils reaching forward, but slower now, as if recovering from the sudden backlash. "We're not outpacing it," Halverson warned, eyes locked on the screen. "It's still following us." Vasquez's fingers danced across her console. The Rogans couldn't outrun it either. Rourke exhaled sharply. "Then we fight smarter. Bring all power to rear shields," he ordered. "Use our wake to distort our slipstream trail. Make us harder to track." The ship shuddered as it pushed beyond its safety limits, diving into the vast expanse of deep space. The entity pursued, but it was slower now. They still had time. Outpost Helios was supposed to be a fortress, a bastion of Terran strength at the edge of the unknown. It had stood against Rogan assaults, pirate raids, and internal rebellion, its defenses unmatched by any station outside the Sol system. Now, as the Vanguard dropped out of Slipstream, it was clear that Helios had already lost. The station was silent, a vast structure of metal and reinforced plating. It floated lifeless in the darkness, its defense turrets offline, its comm channels silent. The once glowing energy shield that should have protected it flickered weakly, as though already consumed. "They're here," Vasquez whispered. Rourke didn't need to confirm it. The same wrongness pressed against his mind, like a presence just beyond his understanding. The entity hadn't just followed them. It had already arrived. Halverson scanned the wreckage. No life signs, no escape pods launched. It's like they never had a chance. A flicker on the view screen. At first, it seemed like nothing more than static interference. Then, shapes moved within the ruined station. Not crew, not human. Reflections of things that shouldn't be. They shifted, their forms half seen, half imagined, flickering between moments of recognition and unmaking. They weren't ships. They weren't bodies. They were echoes, repeating something that had already happened before the station fell. Vasquez's breath hitched. They're inside reality itself. Rourke clenched his fists. How do we fight something that doesn't even exist the way we understand it? The whisper returned, creeping into his skull. "You don't." And then the reflections turned toward them. The whisper became a scream. The Vanguard's lights exploded, every console flaring with warnings as the station's remains surged toward them, dragged by unseen forces. "They're pulling us in," Halverson shouted. Rourke slammed a command into the interface, forcing a full reverse burn. But the ship didn't respond. The gravity shifted, pulling them toward the dying station, as if the laws of physics themselves had changed. They weren't just being dragged. Reality was folding toward them. "Find me a way out," Rourke demanded. Vasquez's voice was tight with fear. "Sir, I think it's not pulling us in. It's trying to make us part of it." The station shimmered, its wreckage shifting, as if caught between past, present, and something else entirely. The whisper was deafening now. Rourke made a choice. Fire everything. The Vanguard unleashed its full arsenal. Every remaining torpedo, every plasma cannon erupting in a final desperate barrage. The explosion ripped through the void, momentarily severing the pull. The ship lurched free, engines burning as they forced themselves away from the collapsing nightmare. The reflections watched them go. And then, in a final burst of flickering light, Outpost Helios was gone. Silence filled the bridge. Vasquez's voice broke first. It wasn't just an attack. It wasn't conquest. Rourke met her gaze. They consume, she whispered. And they're still coming. End of section 2. The Vanguard drifted through the void, its hull scarred, its systems barely holding together. Silence settled over the bridge, the kind that carried weight. A shared realization among the crew that what had happened at Outpost Helios was not an anomaly. It was an inevitability. Captain Elias Rourke sat in his chair, fingers pressed to his temples as if he could force away the lingering presence that still gnawed at the edges of his mind. The entity, or whatever intelligence guided it, had not only followed them, it had anticipated them. And now it was spreading. Lieutenant Mira Vasquez hunched over her console, her eyes scanning the data stream, looking for answers where none existed. Helios is gone. There's no debris, no radiation signature. It's as if the station was erased from existence. Commander Dren Halverson exhaled sharply. If that's what it does, then we're looking at something that doesn't conquer. It unmakes. Rourke lifted his gaze. And if it isn't stopped, it'll spread beyond the frontier, beyond Terran space. Silence. Vasquez's voice was barely above a whisper. Sir, I think it already has. She tapped a control, bringing up a series of fragmented distress calls. The signals were weak, distorted by interference, but the meaning was clear. Similar incidents had been reported across multiple systems. Ships disappearing mid-transmission. Colonies going dark with no warning. A pattern emerging along the outskirts of Terran territory. This isn't isolated, Vasquez continued, her fingers tightening into fists. This is a cascade. We're just one step ahead of it. Rourke pushed himself upright. One step wasn't enough. Then we need to stop running. Halverson frowned. You're not suggesting we engage this thing? We don't have a choice. The Rogans tried to flee, and it didn't save them. The station had the best defenses we could build, and it didn't matter. If we don't act now, there won't be anything left to defend. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Vasquez cleared her throat. Sir, with all due respect, we don't even know what it is, let alone how to fight it. We don't, Rourke admitted. But we know one thing, it reacted when we activated the Slipstream drive. It hesitated. He leaned forward. That means it's vulnerable to something in our technology. Vasquez's eyes widened. You think the Slipstream field disrupts it? It's a theory, Rourke said. And right now, it's the only one we've got. Halverson straightened. Then we set a trap. Rourke nodded. We find the largest gravitational well we can. Something big enough to amplify our Slipstream field. We lure it in, trigger a resonance pulse, and if we're lucky, we sever its hold on reality, Vasquez finished. It was a long shot, but it was something. Rourke turned to the helm. Set course for the nearest neutron star. And prepare for the worst. The neutron star burned with an intensity that defied comprehension. A collapsing core of once great mass, now compressed into a singularity of gravitational fury. Space warped around it, time stretched and twisted. And it was here, on the very edge of this monstrous force, that the Vanguard would make its stand. The entity followed them. It did not chase in the traditional sense, did not burn fuel or alter course. It shifted, appearing just beyond the ship as if it had always been there. Its form had changed. Where before it had been a shadow, now it was fractured, multiple echoes of itself overlapping, shifting between possibilities. Rourke clenched his jaw. It's adapting. The ship trembled as the entity reached out, its tendrils bypassing physical matter, pressing against the very fabric of thought. A whisper coiled around Rourke's mind, threading into his memories, his fears. There is no war, no victory, no survival. He shook it off. Engineering, activate the Slipstream core. The neutron star's gravity well surged, amplifying the ship's energy output. The entity recoiled, its form rippling. It's working, Vasquez gasped. The field is distorting its structure. Rourke didn't hesitate. Push the drive to full resonance. Now, the ship's core howled. Space shattered. A burst of energy rippled outward, not as an explosion but as an absence, a void where the entity had been. The tendrils snapped back, unraveling as the resonance field disrupted the unnatural physics that bound it. The bridge shook violently as alarms blared. The entity screamed, not in sound, but in a psychic reverberation that sent the crew reeling. And then, silence. The screen showed only the neutron star. The entity was gone, or so it seemed. Vasquez checked her readings, her breath still ragged. Did we? Before she could finish, the ship lurched. The lights dimmed. The whispers returned, softer this time, but more insidious. You cannot destroy what is not bound by your laws. Rourke's vision blurred. The stars themselves shifted, as if space was being rewritten around them. Then he understood. We didn't kill it, he murmured. We just forced it to retreat deeper. Halverson exhaled slowly. So it's still out there. Vasquez swallowed hard. And now it knows we can hurt it. Rourke straightened, his resolve hardening. A war was coming. And this time, humanity wouldn't be caught off guard. End of section 3.